Good evening and welcome to ILTV's Insider. I'm ILTV Editor-in-Chief Maayan Hoffman.
And I'm News Editor Steve Leibowitz.
Tonight, we take a step back from the day-to-day aspects of the ongoing war with Hamas and Hezbollah and provide special coverage on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. We'll delve into the ongoing challenges faced by Arabs living in Israel 9 months into the war. What impact has the conflict had on their daily lives and communities? How are they navigating the complex dynamics between their Palestinian heritage and Israeli citizenship? Have the relationships between the Arabs living in Israel, in the West Bank and Gaza shifted, and why?
And to help us understand the realities of the Arab-Israeli and Palestinian public amidst the ongoing war on multiple fronts, we have with us two seasoned guests. Khaled Toameh is an award-winning Arab-Israeli journalist, lecturer, and documentary filmmaker specializing in Palestinian affairs. Welcome, Khaled.
Thank you very much.
And Amnon Soliciano is co-director of the Abraham Initiatives, an organization promoting Jewish-Arab partnership across all aspects of Israeli society. Thank you for joining us as well.
Now, Steve, with your permission, I'd like to ask the first question, and I want to direct this at Khaled. Khaled, it's been more than 9 months since the Israeli-Hamas war began, and many Palestinians believe that the future in the Gaza Strip will mirror the period before October 7th, what we saw on October 6th, with Hamas maintaining control of the Gaza Strip. Do you believe that that is going to happen? Currently, what I understand is that the Palestinians are divided into two groups, those that despise Hamas and those that don't. What's your take on it?
The truth, Maayan, is that according to public opinion polls, a majority of Palestinians really believes that the day after in the Gaza Strip will look exactly like the day before October 7. In other words, that Hamas will continue to rule the Gaza Strip. Now, there are many reasons as to why some Palestinians, for them, it's wishful thinking. They would like to see Hamas remain in power. Why? Because they are affiliated with Hamas, they support Hamas, they have a lot of empathy for Hamas. And number two, because they don't see an alternative to Hamas in Gaza. They don't see anyone rising, any new force or any new party emerging over there. So they say, this is what we have. So as you said, a majority of Palestinians really believe that Hamas will continue to control the Gaza Strip in the aftermath of the war.
But there are those who don't want that.
Of course, there are those who don't want that. There are people in Gaza, and I talk to many people in Gaza who don't want Hamas. I talk to many Palestinians in the West Bank, specifically the Palestinian Authority. They also don't want Hamas. But here's the problem. They do not want to speak out against Hamas, or they are reluctant to speak out. They see that the few Palestinians who do speak out against Hamas are being punished. People are saying, if you want to see the emergence of an alternative leadership in the Gaza Strip, you need to provide protection to those Palestinians. You cannot expect the Palestinians or request or ask the Palestinians to come up with a new leadership as long as Hamas is there. It doesn't work.
So let me ask you this just as a quick follow-up question, then I'll turn it over to Steve. But, with regarding Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, now just this week, he came out actually kind of against Hamas. He said, well, the war is ongoing because of Hamas, and he actually took the blame a little bit off of Israel. He got a lot of slack for that. Do you think he meant it? Is there any opportunity at all for some revised Palestinian Authority to sort of slide in there and take control?
First of all, we all know that there is no love between the Palestinian Authority and Hamas. In fact, President Mahmoud Abbas despises Hamas. He hates Hamas. He continues to accuse them or hold them responsible for trying to assassinate him. I think it was in 2005 or 2006. He holds Hamas responsible for carrying out the coup in the Gaza Strip. And he has come out with very strong statements against Hamas over the past 20 years. Since October 7, I've been going to Ramallah a lot and meeting with Palestinian officials over there, and they have also been speaking out against Hamas, but in private. President Abbas, in meetings with foreign dignitaries and world leaders, he does condemn Hamas. But here's the problem, Maayan and Steve. He's condemning Hamas for bringing war on the Palestinians, for providing Israel with a pretext to attack Gaza. I would like to see President Abbas and other Palestinian officials condemn the October 7 massacres committed by Hamas. The problem is that I see many people
They've
denying.
not done so until today.
They deny it. They deny it. Or they say if it happened, it wasn't on such a large scale or something like that. There's an attempt to make it look as if it's something minor, and that's a problem. President Abbas will not go back to Gaza as long as Hamas is there. In private, Palestinian officials in Ramallah are praying that Israel will destroy Hamas. Some of them, and I know it's hard to believe this, some of them are actually disappointed. They phone me, they sit with me and they say, Khaled, why is it taking these Israelis so long?
We ask the same questions.
Well, I mean, the question, I suppose, is if Hamas was gone and we all had only the Palestinian Authority to deal with, would it solve all of our problems? I'm not so sure. But Amnon, let me turn to you. In 2021, we had riots in some of the mixed cities in this country, in Lod and in Yaffo and in other places, in Haifa and other areas. This war, when the war started, it was relatively quiet, and it's remained relatively quiet among the Arab-Israeli population. How do you describe, why the difference?
So I'd say, first of all, most Israeli Palestinians were absolutely horrified with what they saw taking place on October 7th.
And they spoke out.
And they spoke out, and they wanted to differentiate themselves, and they condemned, and they started, by the way, to identify as Israeli. We measured how people identify and what is the Israeli component in their the way they describe themselves, and we saw for the first time that many preferred to call themselves or to describe themselves first and foremost as Israelis and not as Palestinians. And I'm talking about Israeli Arab citizens. The second reason was the fact that people understood the severity of the situation, that this time, it's not a joke. Israel is getting into a full-scale war in the south, in the north. And it's not just another round of hostilities between Israel and the Palestinians. And Benjamin Netanyahu, our prime minister, called what is happening, I think, in the first week of the war, he said, this is our second independent war. And for many Palestinians living in Israel, when you talk about this conflict as a second war of independence, they heard this is a second Nakba. There is a chance or there is a risk for a second Nakba. So that was the second reason. And the third reason for the relative quiet, I think, was the fact that all of us in the Israeli civil society, organizations, also in the municipalities, and to some degree also within the government, we were much better prepared. And we have been working for a number of years on de-escalation programs that were put together and were ready for exactly what happened. And we were able to respond quicker and better and to keep emotions down, and I think that we managed to contribute to this.
Taking into account all that you just said, and I understand, for example, that there are Israeli Arabs, mostly Bedouin, and certainly there are many, many Druze, including some who have sacrificed their lives during this war. Could you see a situation where Israeli Arabs will be drafted into national service and into military service, and there won't be, a massive kind of a pushback?
Won't be the Haredim?
Like we're seeing with the ultra-Orthodox? Or would there be that a prohibitive
Not
pushback?
In the foreseen future. I do see
Even national service.
I do see the option of what we call, civil volunteering or civil service.
Volunteering, though, not draft.
You can call it national service, not military service.
And not obligatory. Not obligatory.
Not obligatory, and not before the Israeli Arab or the Israeli Palestinian conflict is resolved. We need to understand the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians is a huge problem, a huge barrier for the integration of Israeli Arab citizens into Israeli society. So once this is off the table, this is not a question anymore, I don't see any problem for a full integration of Israeli Arab citizens in all walks of society, in all sectors, including maybe the military.
Well, and I'd like to kind of piggyback on that and to think a little bit about the economy, both inside Israel and also, Khaled, if we can turn to you in terms of the Palestinian territories, because we talk a lot about the ultra-Orthodox integration into the military and ultimately into the economy, all sort of being one package. I think that question sort of relates. But ultimately, right now, we have actually stopped since October 7th allowing Palestinian workers to come into the country. That is taking a tremendous toll on the economy in the Palestinian territories. And I'm wondering, usually when people are not working, when they're sitting home, we know that there is a lot of radicalization going on in those territories. Do you envision some form of a new front or a third intifada as a result of our unwillingness to let those Palestinians back in Israel?
The economic crisis in the West Bank or in the Palestinian territories did not start in October 7th. It started long before, several years before actually, when Israel started withholding the tax revenues that it collects on behalf of the Palestinians, and that has caused a major problem
but that's because of pay to slay, correct? It
doesn't matter.
Okay.
You are withholding hundreds of millions of shekels that are paid not only to the families of terrorists, but also to civil servants.
And this is their own tax money that we collect for them at the border.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
So we have a situation where nearly 200,000 civil servants and members of the security forces, of the Palestinian security forces, have, for the past 3 or 4 years, been receiving half salaries, 60% of their salaries, and this month they are going to receive 40% of their salaries. Now, add to this the ban on the entry of more than 100,000 Palestinians from the West Bank into Israel. We're talking about laborers, people who before October 7 used to come and work inside Israel. And you can only imagine how deep the crisis is. It's a very sharp crisis. I see it. I talk to people. Many members of the Palestinian security forces, they are telling me, we don't have money to take a taxi to work. Wow. We stopped going to work.
So will they radicalize as a result? Are you going to see them start trying to get back at Israel?
People are angry with Israel. They're also angry with the Palestinian Authority, and they're angry with Hamas. These are people who are
Who do they like?
Or who do they choose to go against?
Who do they support right now?
I'm talking about the ordinary Palestinian. For him, he will respect anyone who provides him with a job, with an income. People are not sitting there and saying, I want a Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital, with 242 and 33. People are saying, I want to feed my children. I want to support my family. And this is the number one priority. Now, going back to your question, Maayan, about the problem of radicalization, or that other radical elements might come into the and try to fill the vacuum. We do see it in Jenin and in Tulkarem. And I've been talking to residents of Jenin and Tulkarem, and they are telling me, look, if you are an employee of the Palestinian Authority, you get 3,000 shekels today. But if you are a member of the Jenin Battalion or the Tulkarem Battalion, you get your salary from Iran and Hezbollah.
They're paid salaries. The terrorists in Jenin.
There's a lot of cash coming into.
So it's better to be working for a terrorist organization.
And the members of these groups, they earn more than 10,000 and 15,000 shekels a month. So we need to be very careful about where we are headed. Collective punishment can backfire, and it can cause problems not only for Israel but also for the Palestinian Authority.
Makes sense. And I want to just quickly piggyback with you, Amnon, on that same question, because I know that when the war started, there was a lot of tension. We've seen even, in the news, certain Arab-Israeli establishments, restaurants, businesses going out. There's a lot of hesitation, or was at least some hesitation in, going and using some of these services. Some people lost jobs. Are you seeing a similar phenomenon in the Arab-Israeli community?
Yeah, not very dramatic. We did notice a slight decrease in the economic activity, It is not as dramatic as we experienced in May of 21. But yes, and if I may say something about what is happening in the West Bank, I think that the tension is not limited to economic pressure. We are not told, but there is a small war taking place in the West Bank. Gangs of hooligans from the settlers' communities are doing, everything that they want to do to the Palestinians. They are backed by the army. They are backed by their leaders, and something very frightening is taking place in the West Bank at the moment. And Israel should pay attention to those rising tensions there.
I want to turn back to Khaled. There's a U.S. plan out there that talks about training 2,500 Palestinians, bringing them over to Gaza and creating a kind of a government with moderate Arab countries helping. And I have to say that from the things I've heard from you today, you wouldn't necessarily ruling out that having a chance to succeed. In other words, there are Palestinians, including people that could be good civil servants, that could be trusted enough to be sent over and with security training and with security guarantees and be able to run daily life in Gaza. Is that possible?
It is a possibility, but here's the problem. Who's going to protect these people?
There has to be a security component to this.
Yeah, and who is going to establish the security component? If it's the U.S. and Israel and the United Arab Emirates, the Palestinians will not accept it.
And if it's the Palestinian Authority trained by the U.S.?
I don't think that the Palestinian Authority will go back to Gaza in that manner. That's not the way the Palestinian Authority wants to go back to Gaza.
Don't they want revenge? Aren't they looking to reassert themselves as the rulers of all of Palestinian territories? I mean,
yes.
That's where they believed that they came into office to do just that. Abbas is not supposed to be the ruler of Ramallah only.
Yeah, but they are also very sensitive to the sentiments on the Palestinian street, and they hear the Palestinian street saying, we don't want to see any Palestinian leader enter Gaza on top of an Israeli tank. If you come
we'll
to
pull
Gaza,
out the tanks and
and
then
the
go.
surveys show that the Palestinians in the West Bank, from what I understand, are much more pro-Hamas than even the people living in Gaza.
Yes. Here's the sad news. Hamas is still very popular, and no Palestinian leader will go back to Gaza as long as Hamas is very popular and as long as you have not destroyed all of Hamas's military capabilities. That's why I say, if you want to see the emergence of a new leadership in Gaza, of a new government, you need to, number one, severely undermine or completely destroy Hamas's military capabilities. And number two, you need a strong government there that will protect the new leadership. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Now, Israel has left a vacuum, both in the security and in the civilian matters. And that, as far as the Palestinians concerned in Gaza, Hamas is still there. Why? Because there's no security force, there's no police force other than Hamas, and there's no one controlling the civilian matters other than Hamas. We forget that Hamas is not only security forces. Hamas is the Ministry of Labor, Hamas is the Ministry of Health, Hamas is the Ministry of Waqf, and Hamas is there. As a government, Hamas is still functioning.
Amnon, I want to come back to you. We know that there is very little support for Hamas on the side of Israeli Arab population. They would love to see them defeated, swept out, and Palestinians to help run the place. Might there possibly be, maybe this is a provocation, but might there possibly be some Israeli Arabs that could also be helpful? They speak the language, they understand the Middle East, they understand the situation. Yes, they're Israeli citizens. And I know Israeli citizens were also murdered by Hamas on October 7th, and they know it as well. But might there be some that are brave enough to step up and say, I want to help with the administration?
So I think that Israeli Arab citizens are, torn between their loyalty, obviously, to Israel and to Israeli society. At the same time, they are Palestinian by their nationality, heritage, language.
So they have an interest.
And they have a huge interest in peace building, in making peace, and they have a lot to lose from the ongoing situation. I think that there are people who want to play a constructive role in mediating, in getting the Palestinians and the Israelis.
Who are some of these people? Anyone that's prominent enough to actually have an impact?
So I think that both on the political spectrum and also within civil society, there are those leaders who will be willing to play this constructive role.
Get them here sooner rather than later. Do you want me to help introduce them to somebody to be helpful? We need a plan for Gaza for the day after.
Well, and I think that we're going to run out of time, and I think there's one question that we really need to ask both of you to end with, and maybe actually Khaled, you can take it, and then Amnon to end us out here. If either of you could give us one piece of advice to help solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict today, and we would roll in these people, or we would roll in this plan, what would it be? Khaled, 1 minute, and then Amnon, 1 minute.
A divorce, in one word.
A divorce?
Yes, a divorce. We are talking about a husband and wife who can't stand each other anymore. They don't want to live with each other. We keep trying to make peace between them, and it's not working.
That's something we both understand.
Right, but I don't think the whole world needed to know that.
It's a divorce, and I think the divorce is good for the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza, and it's good for Israeli Jewish society also. Physical separation in one way or another. I'm not saying 2-state, 3-state, but they need to be physically and politically separated from each other. I think that's the only solution.
Amnon.
So divorce and marriage. Maybe divorce with the Palestinians and creating a nation state for the Palestinians, because this is the long-term solution and also the long-term solution for the security of Israel. And marriage with the Palestinians in Israel, because essentially Israel will never be able to separate Jews from Palestinians inside of Israel. So
nor would we want to.
No, yeah, of course.
I mean, the professionals that I all work with, my doctors and so on, are all Israeli Arab.
Israeli-Palestinian community is integral part of Israeli society.
We have to leave it there. I'm so sorry. So great to have both of you with us. It's all the time we have this evening. Thank you to our guests, Khaled Abu Toameh, and I'm going to try this again, Amnon Be'eri Sulit Siano.
Thank you.
For more of the latest updates from Israel, make sure to subscribe to our newsletter at ILTV.tv. Thanks for watching Insider. Have a pleasant evening. Let's win this war and bring our hostages home.